June sat at his desk, staring at the file on his screen. The numbers didn't look good. Not good at all. He rubbed his eyes and sighed. Still thinking about that human loan? Minji asked, leaning against his doorway. June nodded. Director Todd wants an answer by the end of the day. And what will you tell him? Minji walked in and sat down across from him. The Galactic Credit Union's offices hummed with quiet activity. Through the large window behind June, ships of all sizes moved through space like fish in a vast ocean. June had worked here for 12 years. He knew the rules. He knew the risks. This loan to humans broke many of the rules and carried many risks. The humans need this money, Minji, June said. Their colony will starve without it. Minji shook her head. That's not our problem. We're bankers, not charity workers. But think of the opportunity, June argued. Humans are new to the galactic community. If we help them now, think of the future business. If they have a future, Minji said. Their colony on Proxima Centauri is failing. That's why they need the loan. June's computer chimed. A message from Director Ta. Meeting with human representative in 10 minutes. Conference room 3. Looks like I'll be making my decision soon, June said, standing up and straightening his uniform. Minji grabbed his arm. Be careful, June. No one knows much about humans yet. They're unpredictable. That's what makes them interesting, June smiled. Conference room 3 was small but comfortable. Director Ta sat at the head of the table, his 4 arms folded neatly in front of him. Beside him sat the human. Ah, June. Director Ta said. Meet Han, representative of the human colony on Proxima Centauri V. Han stood up. He was shorter than June expected, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He wore simple clothes, nothing fancy. He extended his hand. It's a human greeting custom, Director Tat explained. June took Han's hand. It felt warm and strong. Thank you for considering our request, Han said, his voice quiet but clear. Our situation is dire. They all sat down. June opened his tablet and reviewed the loan request again. You're asking for a significant amount, June said. And your colony's current financial situation is concerning. Han nodded. I won't lie to you. We're in trouble. Our first crops failed. The soil on Proxima Centauri is different from Earth. We need to develop new farming methods, new seed types. That takes money. Money you don't have, Director Ta pointed out. Not yet, Han agreed. But humans adapt quickly. Give us this chance, and we'll not only repay the loan but become valuable partners in the future. June studied Han's face. There was something there. Determination, maybe. Or desperation. Or both. The interest rate would be high, June said. The risk factors. We understand the terms, Han interrupted. We'll pay whatever interest rate you set. Director Tay's eyebrows raised. All 4 of them. That's unusual, June said. Han leaned forward. Mr. June, my people are facing starvation. We need this loan. We'll make it work, whatever the cost. June looked at the human's hands. They were calloused, the nails short. Working hands. What guarantees can you offer? June asked. Only our word, Han replied honestly. And our history. Humans have faced many challenges in our past. We've always found a way to overcome them. June thought about what Minji had said about humans being unpredictable. Was that a bad thing? Or could it be an advantage? Director Ta cleared his throat. June, the final decision is yours. As our human affairs specialist, we trust your judgment. June didn't correct him. He wasn't a human affairs specialist. Until today, he'd never even met a human, but he recognized an opportunity when he saw one. I'll approve the loan, June said finally. Han's face broke into a smile. Thank you. You won't regret this. As they finished the meeting and Han left, Director Todd put one of his hands on June's shoulder. Bold decision, he said. I hope it's the right one. So do I, June replied. watching Han walk away. He couldn't shake the feeling that something important had just happened, something that would change everything. 6 months had passed since June approved the loan to the humans. He sat at his new desk, in his new larger office. The wall behind him now displayed his name with a new title: Senior Credit Officer, Human Affairs Division. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," June called. Director Tai entered, all 4 arms carrying different data tablets. "Good news, June," Director Ta said, his wide mouth stretched in what his species considered a smile. "The humans have made their first payment, and they made it early." June couldn't hide his relief. "That is good news. How is their colony doing?" Director Ta placed one of the tablets on June's desk. "See for yourself." The screen showed images of vast green fields on Proxima Centauri. Where there had once been barren land, crops now grew in neat rows. Small buildings dotted the landscape, and humans worked among the plants. "This is impressive," June said. "They did all this in just 6 months." "Exactly." Director Ta nodded, all 3 of his eyes blinking in sequence. "The board is very pleased. Your risk paid off." After Director Ta left, Minji walked in without knocking. "I heard the news. The humans paid early." "They did." June couldn't keep the pride from his voice. "Their colony is thriving." Minji sat down across from him. "I'm happy for you, June. Really. But something about this feels strange." "What do you mean?" "I've been researching humans," Minji said. "Did you know their planet has thousands of different climates and environments?" June shrugged. "Many planets do." "Yes, but humans have adapted to live in all of them. From frozen wastelands to burning deserts, they change their surroundings when they can. And when they can't, they change themselves." Before June could respond, his computer chimed with an incoming video call. It was Han. June accepted the call. Han's face appeared on the screen, smiling broadly. "Mr. June, good to see you again." "Han," June nodded. "Congratulations on your colony success, and thank you for the early payment." Han waved his hand dismissively. "It's the least we could do. Your trust saved our colony." Minji moved to stand behind June, visible in the camera. "And you must be Minji," Han said. "June mentioned you were concerned about lending to humans." Minji looked surprised but nodded. "Smart," Han said. "Caution is always wise when dealing with unknown factors, but I hope we're proving ourselves trustworthy." "Your progress is remarkable," June said. "How did you adapt your crops so quickly?" Han's eyes lit up. "That's actually why I'm calling. We've developed a new strain of crops that can grow in conditions previously thought impossible. We've called it the June hybrid in your honor." June felt his scales flush with pride. "We'd like to invite you both to visit our colony," Han continued. "See what your loan has helped create." 2 weeks later, June and Minji stood on the surface of Proxima Centauri, looking out over fields of golden grain stretching to the horizon. "This is the June hybrid," Han said, plucking a stalk and handing it to June. "It requires 60% less water than traditional crops and grows in half the time." "Amazing," June whispered. As they toured the colony, June noticed how efficiently everything ran. The humans worked hard but seemed happy. They had built homes, schools, and even a small market. "We'll be completely self-sufficient within another 6 months," Han explained. "And we've already started exporting surplus food to neighboring systems." Later, as they prepared to return to the Galactic Credit Union, Han pulled June aside. "We're thinking of expanding," he said quietly. "There are other planets in nearby systems with similar conditions. With our new farming methods, we could make them productive too." "You'd need more funding," June said. Han nodded. "A bigger loan. Much bigger, but the return would be substantial." "I'll need to discuss it with the board," June said. As their ship lifted off, Minji looked troubled. "What's wrong?" June asked. "Surely you're impressed now." "That's what worries me," Minji replied. No species adapts this quickly. No one solves problems this fast. Maybe that's just how humans are, Jun suggested. Maybe, Minji said, looking back at the human colony growing smaller below them. Or maybe we still don't understand what we're dealing with. 1 year after the first loan, Jun sat at the head of the conference table. The room was larger than the one where he had first met Han. The table was longer. The chairs were nicer. And now, Jun was the one who made the big decisions. The Human Development Fund, Jun said, pointing to the screen behind him. A special division focused only on human ventures. The board members murmured among themselves. Some sounded excited. Others sounded worried. The first loan has been fully repaid, Jun continued, 6 months ahead of schedule. The interest alone has made the bank more credits than any other single loan last year. Director Tae, sitting to Jun's right, nodded in approval. The board is impressed, Jun. But some members have concerns about this new expansion proposal. An older board member named Gil raised one of his tentacles. The humans want to develop farming on 5 more planets. That's very ambitious. Ambitious, yes, Jun agreed. But they've proven they can do what they promise. These new planets are in different systems, another board member pointed out. They have different conditions, different challenges. Jun pressed a button, and the screen showed images of the human colony now. Tall buildings stood where there had once been only small structures. Roads connected vast farming areas. Ships came and went from a new spaceport. This is what they did with our first loan, Jun said. Imagine what they could do with more support. The door opened, and Minji walked in. She had reluctantly joined Jun's team 3 months ago as head of research. Sorry I'm late, she said, taking the seat. I was finishing the risk assessment report. And? Director Tae asked. Minji looked uncomfortable. On paper, everything looks good. The humans have perfect credit now. Their business plan is solid. But Jun could tell she was holding something back. But they're moving too fast, Minji said. No species expands this quickly. It's not natural. Han walked into the meeting room before anyone could respond. He looked different now. His clothes were finer. He stood taller. His smile was more confident. Thank you for seeing me, Han said. I hope I'm not interrupting. We were just discussing your proposal, Jun said. Han nodded and moved to the front of the room. May I? He asked, gesturing to the screen controls. Jun gave him access, and new images appeared. 5 planets, each looking barren and lifeless. These worlds were considered worthless, Han explained. Too hot, too cold, too dry, or too wet for traditional farming. He pressed another button, and the images changed to show computer models of the same planets covered in crops. With our new techniques and the Jun hybrid crop, we can make each of these worlds produce food. Lots of food. For humans only, Jill asked. Han smiled. For everyone. We're not interested in keeping this to ourselves. We want to sell food throughout the galaxy. Help feed worlds that struggle with food production. The board members looked more interested now. What would be your estimated production? Director Tae asked. Within 2 years, we could produce enough food to supply 27 systems, Han said. The number shocked everyone into silence. That's impossible, Minji finally said. For most species, yes, Han agreed. But not for humans. We've spent thousands of years perfecting agriculture on our home planet. Now we're applying that knowledge here. After more discussion, the board voted. The result was clear. The loan was approved. Later, as Jun and Minji walked back to their offices, Minji stopped suddenly. They're hiding something, she said. No one just wants to feed the galaxy out of kindness. Maybe they want to make money, Jun suggested. That's normal. Or maybe they want something more, Minji said. Have you noticed they've started buying ships? Not just cargo ships, fast ships. Lots of them. Jun frowned. For delivering food, I assume. Maybe, Minji said. But I've been looking into human history. Do you know what they did on their home planet? Farming. War, June. Lots and lots of war. Against each other for thousands of years. They've only been united as one people for about a century. June looked back toward the conference room, where Han was still talking with some board members. You think they're planning something dangerous? I don't know, Minji admitted. But I do know one thing. We still don't understand humans, and that makes them dangerous. 18 months after the expansion loan, Jun stood by the large window in his executive office. The view of space outside was impressive, but Jun wasn't looking at it. He was watching the news on his large screen. Food prices continue to drop across 3 sectors as human farming operations expand. The news anchor was saying. The anchor had blue skin and 6 eyes, all of which looked concerned. The Valerian Food Consortium has reported a 60% drop in profits this quarter. Jun's door slid open. Director Ta walked in quickly, all 4 of his arms holding different data tablets. Have you seen the news? Director Ta asked. I'm watching it now, Jun replied. The Valerians have filed a complaint with the Galactic Commerce Authority, Director Ta said. They're claiming the humans are intentionally destroying the market. Jun turned away from the screen. Are they breaking any laws? No, Director Tai admitted. They're just growing more food, faster and cheaper than anyone else can. But many species are upset. Upset that food is more available and less expensive, Jun asked. Upset that they're losing money and power, Director Tai clarified. The Valerians have controlled food production in their sector for over 300 years. Now, in less than 2 years, humans have taken over most of the market. Jun's computer chimed with an incoming call. It was Minji. Jun, you need to see this, she said without greeting. Sending it to your screen now. A document appeared. It was a request for another loan. A big one. But this wasn't from Han or the human colony Jun knew. It was from a different human group. Who is this? Jun asked. They call themselves the Human Trade Alliance, Minji explained. They want to build transportation hubs in 7 systems. They've approached 6 different banks, including 3 of our competitors. Director Tad looked alarmed. Other banks are lending to humans now. Everyone wants a piece of the action, Minji said. Human ventures are paying returns that no one has seen in centuries. Before Jun could respond, another call came in. This one was from Han. Jun accepted it. Jun, my friend. Han smiled. I hope I'm not interrupting. Not at all, Jun lied. What can I do for you? I just wanted to give you advance notice, Han said. We're about to announce a new project. We're calling it the Interstellar Food Security Initiative. What does that mean? Director Tay asked. It means we're going to ensure no world goes hungry, no matter what, Han explained. We'll be building food storage facilities in 30 systems, with rapid delivery capabilities to respond to any crisis. That sounds expensive, Jones said carefully. Han nodded. It is. We'll be talking to your bank about financing, of course. But I wanted you to know first, as our oldest financial partner. After Han disconnected, Director Tad looked at Jun with all 3 of his eyes wide. 30 systems. They're expanding faster than any species in galactic history. Minji, still on the other call, spoke up. And they're diversifying. It's not just food anymore. They're getting into transportation, storage, distribution. They're building a network, Jun realized. A web that connects everything together. With them at the center, Minji added. Jun's private communicator buzzed. The message was from the bank's president, requesting an immediate meeting. I have to go, Jun told the others. The president wants to see me. In the president's office, Jun found not only the bank president, but also representatives from 3 competing banks. Ah, Jun, the president said. Just the person we need. These gentlemen want to know everything you can tell them about doing business with humans. One of the visitors, a tall insectoid banker, clicked his mandibles nervously. We've received loan applications from human groups. The projected returns are difficult to believe. But your bank has done very well with human loans, yes? Another banker asked. June thought carefully before answering. Yes, we have. The humans have met or exceeded every projection. And you trust them? The insectoid asked. June remembered Minji's warnings. He thought about how quickly the humans had changed from a struggling colony to a major economic force. I think, June said slowly, that the humans are very good at seeing opportunities that others miss. What June didn't say was what worried him most. What opportunity were the humans seeing now that everyone else was missing? June's new office took up half the floor of the Galactic Credit Union's headquarters. Through the large windows, he could see ships coming and going from the space station. Many of them were human ships now. 2 years ago, there had been none. His door chimed. Come in, June called. Minji entered, carrying a small data cube. She looked tired. You wanted my report on human economic activities, she asked. Yes, June nodded. Please sit. Minji placed the cube on June's desk. A holographic display appeared, showing a map of the galaxy. Hundreds of points of light glowed across it. The blue lights are human farming operations, Minji explained. The green ones are transportation hubs. The red ones are financial institutions they're connected to. June studied the map. The lights formed a clear pattern, like a web stretching across 3 sectors of the galaxy. There are so many, he said quietly. And growing every day, Minji added. They've repaid all their loans. Their credit is perfect. They employ millions of non-humans. No one can find any legal problems with what they're doing. But June knew there was more. But something feels wrong, Minji said. No species moves this fast. No one builds this much, this quickly. Before June could respond, his assistant's voice came through the intercom. Sir, Han is here to see you. He says it's important. June looked at Minji. She raised her eyebrows but said nothing. Send him in, June decided. Han walked in, smiling as always. He wore an elegant suit now, very different from the simple clothes he had worn when they first met. He carried a small case. June, my friend, Han greeted him warmly. And Minji too. Perfect. I was hoping to speak with both of you. What can we do for you? June asked. Han sat down and placed his case on the desk. I have a new proposal. But this one is different from our previous discussions. He opened the case and took out a data tablet. He slid it across to June. The human cooperative would like to buy shares in the Galactic Credit Union, Han said simply. June stared at him. Shares? In the bank itself? Yes, Han nodded. We've accumulated significant capital from our ventures. We need to diversify our investments. Minji leaned forward. No non-founding species has ever owned shares in a galactic financial institute. It's unprecedented. But not illegal, Han pointed out. We've checked the regulations carefully. June looked at the tablet. The numbers were enormous. This is a very generous offer. We value our relationship with your bank, Han said. You took a chance on us when no one else would. We don't forget our friends. After Han left, June and Minji sat in silence for a moment. They want to buy into the bank, Minji finally said. Do you know what that means? It means they'll have access to our financial systems from the inside, June said. They'll be able to influence lending decisions. Minji stood up and walked to the window. I've been doing more research, she said. The Human Trade Alliance has made similar offers to 6 other banks. The Human Agricultural Collective is trying to buy controlling interest in 3 major food distribution networks. They're positioning themselves throughout the entire economic system, Jun realized. But why? Minji turned to face him. What's their end goal? June's communicator chimed with a message. It was from Director Ta. Emergency board meeting. 1 hour. When June arrived at the boardroom, it was full. Every member was present, and they all looked worried. Ah, June, the bank president said, "We've received Han's offer. The board is divided on how to respond." "It's too much power for a single species," one member argued. "But the return on investment would be substantial," another countered. "What do you think, June?" Director Tay asked. "You know the humans better than anyone." June thought about everything he had seen. The struggling colony that became a thriving world. The small farm that became a galactic food network. The desperate refugees who now own ships and stations throughout 3 sectors. "I think," Jum said carefully, "that we still don't fully understand what the humans are planning." "Are they dangerous?" the president asked directly. June met his gaze. "They're changing everything. Whether that's dangerous depends on where you're standing." Minji sat alone in her office late at night. The lights were dim. 3 screens glowed in front of her. On each screen was information about humans, their history, their business practices, their wars. She had been researching for weeks now, ever since Han's offer to buy shares in the bank. Something about it bothered her deeply. The other bank officials saw only the profit. But Minji sensed a pattern she couldn't quite name. Her door slid open. June stood there, looking tired. "You're still here," he said. "It's very late." "I found something," Minji replied. "Come look at this." June walked over to her desk. On one screen was an old human document. "What is this?" he asked. "Human business history," Minji explained. "They call it vertical integration and monopolistic practices. Throughout their history, humans have built economic empires by controlling every step in a process." She pointed to another screen. "And here's what they're doing now." The screen showed a complex diagram of human businesses across the galaxy. Lines connected them in a web-like pattern. "They start with farming," Minji explained. "Then they buy ships to transport food. Then they buy storage facilities to hold the food. Then they buy markets to sell the food. Then they buy into banks that finance all these operations." June frowned. "That's just good business." "No," Minji shook her head. "It's a strategy. They're creating a system where everyone depends on them for something essential." She pulled up another screen. "And look at this. The Human Development Group just bought controlling interest in 3 defense manufacturing companies." "Defense?" June looked concerned now. "Why would they need weapons?" "They say it's to protect their shipping lanes," Minji said. "But I think there's more to it." June sat down heavily. "The board voted yesterday. We're accepting Han's offer. Humans will own 15% of the Galactic Credit Union by next week." 15% is a lot," Minji said. "It's the largest share any single group will own," June admitted. Minji looked at him directly. "We need to investigate fully. Not just their business practices, but everything. What they're really doing with all these connections they're building." June hesitated. "The board won't approve an official investigation. They're too happy about the profits humans are bringing in." "Then we do it unofficially," Minji said. "You and me." For the next month, June and Minji worked secretly. They tracked human business deals across the galaxy. They studied human history more deeply. They mapped every connection between human enterprises. Late one night, they met in June's private office to share what they had found. "Look at this," June said, bringing up a galactic map. "Every major trade route now has human involvement somewhere." "And this," Minji added, showing another chart. "Humans now have financial interests in 17% of all galactic banks." "But what does it mean?" June asked. "They haven't broken any laws. They haven't threatened anyone." "Not directly," Minji agreed. "But think about it. What happens if human food shipments suddenly stop? Half the worlds in 3 sectors would face food shortages within days." June's eyes widened. "They wouldn't do that. It would cause massive suffering." "Maybe they wouldn't," Minji said. "But they could. And that gives them power." "Power to do what?" "That's what we need to find out," Minji said. June's private communicator chimed. The message made him freeze. "What is it?" Minji asked. "It's from Han," Jun said. "He wants to meet. Privately. Tomorrow." "He knows," Minji whispered. "Somehow, he knows we're investigating." The next day, Jun met Han at a quiet restaurant on the space station. Han was already seated when Jun arrived, sipping a drink. "Jun, my friend." Han smiled. "Thank you for coming." "Of course," Jun said, trying to sound normal. "What did you want to discuss?" Han leaned forward. "I've noticed you and Minji have been asking a lot of questions lately about human businesses, about our plans." Jun felt a chill. Just routine financial oversight. Han's smile didn't reach his eyes. "There's nothing routine about what we're doing, Jun. Nothing at all." He slid a data card across the table. "I have a new offer for you. A personal one this time. The Human Cooperative would like you to join us as our Chief Financial Officer." Jun stared at the card. "You want me to work for you?" "With us," Han corrected. "At 10 times your current salary." Jun looked up. "Why me?" "Because you understand opportunity," Han said. "And because it's always better to be on the inside of something interesting." Jun didn't sleep that night. Han's offer kept playing in his mind. 10 times his current salary. A position of power within the Human Cooperative. It was tempting. But something felt wrong. Why would they want him? Unless they knew about his investigation with Minji and wanted to keep him quiet. Early the next morning, Jun met Minji in a small park on the space station. They sat on a bench far from others, surrounded by artificial trees. "He offered me a job," Jun told her. "Chief Financial Officer for the Human Cooperative." Minji's eyes widened. "What did you say?" "I told him I needed time to think," Jun replied. "But that's not important right now. I need to show you what I found." He handed her a data cube. She plugged it into her tablet, and a series of transaction records appeared. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "The very first loan," Jun explained. "The one I gave to the humans when they were just a struggling colony." Minji scanned the records. "I don't see anything unusual." "Look at where the money went." Jun pointed to a series of transfers. "They didn't spend it all on farming equipment like they claimed. A large portion went to buy mineral rights on 3 nearby moons." Minji frowned. "Minerals? What kind?" "Rare elements used in advanced ship engines and communication systems," Jun said. "They knew those moons had these minerals before they ever arrived in the system." "How could they know that?" Minji asked. "Because," Jun lowered his voice, "I don't think their colony was ever really failing. I think they planned everything from the beginning." Minji stared at him. "The agricultural crisis was probably fake," Jun nodded. "They needed access to our banking system. They needed that first loan to set up everything else." Minji realized. It was the first strand in their web. For the next 3 days, Jun and Minji dug deeper. They traced every loan, every purchase, every investment the humans had made. A pattern emerged, clearer and more disturbing than they had imagined. On the 4th day, they met in Jun's office to lay out everything they had discovered. "It's incredible," Minji said, looking at the complete picture. "Every loan they took led to another sector. Every business they started fed into another one." Jun nodded grimly. "And now they control key resources in 3 sectors of the galaxy: food, transportation, communication networks, defense manufacturing. And with their shares in various banks, they have influence over who gets financing and who doesn't." "It's an empire," Minji whispered, "not built with weapons, but with money." "Our money," Jun added. "The money we lent them." A soft chime indicated someone at the door. Jun quickly switched off the displays. "Come in." The door slid open. Han stood there, smiling as always. "Jun," he said pleasantly. "And Minji too." "Good. I was hoping to speak with both of you." Jun tried to stay calm. "Han, what can we do for you?" Han walked in and sat down without being invited. I was wondering if you'd made a decision about my offer. I'm still considering it, Jun said carefully. Han nodded. I understand. It's a big decision. He looked at the blank screens. Were you working on something important? I can come back later. Nothing that can't wait, Minji said quickly. Han smiled in a way that made Jun think he knew exactly what they had been doing. I have some news that might help with your decision, Jun. The human cooperative has just acquired majority ownership of the Valerian Food Consortium. Jun couldn't hide his shock. The Valerians sold to you. They didn't have much choice, Han shrugged. We controlled too many of their supply chains already. It was sell to us or go bankrupt. That gives you control over nearly 70% of food production in this sector, Minji said. 74%, actually, Han corrected her. And we've just finalized deals with 2 more defense contractors. Why do you need so many weapons manufacturers? Jun asked directly. Han's smile faded slightly. Protection, of course. Our operations are valuable. They need to be defended. Against whom? Minji pressed. No one is threatening you. Han stood up. Not yet. But in our experience, success always attracts attention. He turned to Jun. My offer stands for 3 more days. After that, we'll find someone else. After he left, Jun and Minji looked at each other. We need to take this to the Galactic Financial Authority, Minji said. Today. Jun nodded. They need to know what's happening before it's too late. The headquarters of the Galactic Financial Authority was a massive structure that floated in space near the central hub of galactic government. Jun had never been here before. Few bankers ever had reason to visit. Are you sure about this? Minji asked as they walked through the grand entrance hall. Once we present our findings, there's no going back. Jun nodded. We have to warn them. The humans are gaining too much power too quickly. They were led to a large meeting room. 5 officials sat around a curved table. They represented 5 different species from across the galaxy. All looked important and busy. This had better be important, said the chairperson, a tall, thin being with silver skin. We don't often meet with individual bankers. It is important, Jun said. It concerns the entire galactic economy. Jun and Minji presented their evidence. They showed how the humans had systematically built connections across multiple industries, how they now controlled food production, transportation networks, and key financial institutions, how they were buying defense contractors. At first, the officials looked bored, then confused, then alarmed. This can't be right, one official said. No species could gain this much influence in just a few years. Humans can, Minji said. They move faster than other species. They think differently. Even if this is true, another official asked, have they broken any laws? Jun hesitated. Not technically. They'd followed all regulations. They just found ways around them that no one expected. The chairperson frowned. So what exactly do you want us to do? We can't punish them for being clever business people. We need to limit their expansion, Jun said. Put restrictions on how much any one species can control across different sectors. The officials looked at each other uneasily. That would require changing fundamental galactic commerce laws, the chairperson said, laws that have existed for thousands of years. If we don't, Minji warned, the humans will soon have economic control over half the galaxy. An aide entered the room and whispered something to the chairperson. The official's silver face showed surprise. It seems, the chairperson said, that representatives of the human cooperative are here. They've requested to join this meeting. Jun felt a chill. How did they know we were here? The door opened. Han walked in, accompanied by 3 other humans Jun had never seen before. They wore elegant clothes and confident smiles. Forgive the interruption, Han said smoothly. But we heard that our business practices were being discussed, and we thought we should be present. How did you hear that? Minji demanded. One of the humans with Han, An older female with gray hair smiled. "We have friends in many places now." The chairperson looked uncomfortable, but nodded. "Perhaps it's best if all parties are present for this discussion." For the next hour, the humans countered every point June and Minji made. Yes, they had expanded quickly, but they had created jobs for millions. Yes, they controlled food production, but they had lowered prices and increased supply. Yes, they had bought shares in banks, but that was just good business. "We're not conquering the galaxy," Han said. "We're helping it. By making everyone dependent on you," Minji pointed out. "Interdependence is the foundation of galactic society," the older human female replied. "We're simply participating in that system." When the meeting ended, the chairperson looked troubled. "We will consider all we've heard today and discuss possible regulatory responses." Outside the meeting room, Han approached June and Minji. "That was unnecessary," he said quietly. "We could have been partners." "We will never be partners," Minji said firmly. Han shrugged. "A pity. You both have such potential." He turned to leave, then stopped. "By the way, June, my offer is now withdrawn. And I should mention that the Human Cooperative has just purchased a controlling interest in your bank's parent company." June stared at him. "What?" "The paperwork was finalized this morning," Han smiled. "I'm technically your employer now." As Han walked away, June turned to Minji. "Do you think the authority will do anything?" he asked. Minji looked grim. "I think it might already be too late." 5 years had passed since June first approved that small loan to a struggling human colony. 5 years that had changed the galaxy forever. Today, Jum sat in the grand observation gallery of the Galactic Commerce Center. He was no longer a banker. After the humans bought his bank, he had resigned. Now he worked as an advisor to several small planets trying to maintain their independence in the new economic reality. Minji sat beside him. She had left the bank too. She now wrote reports about economic trends for news networks. "It's starting," she said, pointing to the main floor below. The Galactic Trade Summit was about to begin. Representatives from every major species and economic power were gathering. But all eyes were on one delegation. The humans entered the hall. They didn't look like desperate colonists anymore. They walked with confidence and purpose. At their head was Han. "No," Jum corrected himself. "Ambassador Han now." In 5 short years, humans had established themselves as a major economic power. They controlled food production in 4 sectors. Their ships carried goods along every major trade route. Their banks financed projects on thousands of worlds. Their defense contractors built ships and weapons for dozens of species. "They did it," Minji said quietly. "Everything we feared." Without firing a single shot, June added. The summit began. Various officials gave speeches about trade and cooperation. Then it was Han's turn to speak. He stood at the central podium, looking out at the gathered representatives of the galaxy. "Friends," Han began, his voice carrying easily through the hall. 5 years ago, humans were newcomers to this galactic community. We were struggling colonists asking for help. His eyes found June in the audience. He gave a small nod of acknowledgement. "Today, we stand before you as partners in prosperity. Our farms feed trillions. Our ships connect worlds. Our financial institutions support growth across the galaxy." Han paused, letting his words sink in. "But we believe we can do more. Today, I am proud to introduce the new Galactic Economic Charter." Displays around the hall lit up, showing a complex document. Minji quickly scanned it, her eyes growing wider. These new regulations would give humans control over interest rates throughout the galaxy, she whispered to June. They could decide which projects get funded and which don't. "The new charter will stabilize markets," Han continued. "It will ensure fair access to resources. It will protect developing worlds from exploitation." What he didn't say, but what everyone understood, was that humans would oversee it all. They would be the ones deciding what was fair and what was exploitation. As Han finished his speech, the hall erupted in discussion. Some species seemed supportive. Others looked worried. A few seemed angry. Will they approve it? Jun wondered. Many will, Minji said. The humans control too many resources now. Food, transportation, finance. Opposing them would be difficult. And if some refuse? Minji shrugged. Then perhaps their food shipments will be delayed, or their loan applications will be denied, or their defense contracts will be canceled. After the session ended, Jun and Minji walked through the grand corridors of the Commerce Center. They were surprised when Han approached them. Jun, Minji, he greeted them warmly. It's been too long. Ambassador Han, Jun acknowledged stiffly. I saw you watching my speech, Han said. What did you think? I think you planned this from the beginning, Jun said. From the very first loan. Han smiled. Not exactly. We had a general strategy, but the specifics evolved over time. And now you control half the galaxy, Minji said. Not control, Han corrected. Influence. There's a difference. Is there? Jun asked. Han looked thoughtful. In human history, empires that ruled by force always fell, but economic networks, trade relationships, financial systems, these can last for centuries. As Han turned to leave, he added, besides, controlling a galaxy through economics is much cheaper than maintaining a massive military, and far less messy. Jun watched him walk away. I told you, Minji whispered beside him. I told you never to lend money to humans. It's a trap. Jun nodded slowly. They conquered the galaxy without a single battle, just with loans and business deals. In the grand scheme of galactic history, many species had tried to build empires through war and conflict. None had succeeded for long. But humans, they had found a different way. A way that made everyone think it was their own idea. A way that made everyone dependent without them even realizing it. Jun had to admit it was brilliant. Terrifying, but brilliant.